Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at another live session here at Temple of Zion. I'm Joseph Figaroa, presenting your Oracle message of the day. And for those of you watching online, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. All right, so today, as we continue in our episode, The Revelation of Time, we continue to understand the revelation of time and now come to understand the meaning of time. In our previous episodes, we've been going through week by week of understanding exactly what time is. And for those of you who are in our live studio audience, what is time?
It is a series of divinely created moments.
Everyone, what is time?
A series of
divinely created moments. This gives us the foundation of understanding time, that time is a series of divinely created moments, which means life in your lifetime is a bunch of divinely created moments. So it's up to us to change those moments. If we want to have a beautiful life, we need to change our timeline into a beautiful created moment. Now, for the meaning of time, which is in this series, we come to understand that life is time. Life is time. Today's scripture is found in Romans 12:2. Today's scripture is going to be established in Romans 12:2 in the sacred text. And for those of you watching live, and you might be wondering what exactly is he referring to as a sacred text, for those of you who've been following these episodes, and for those of you who've been receiving from the Oracle messages, the book that people call the Bible is a book of laws. But what kind of laws are they, everyone? They're universal laws. Universal laws, which means all things have been and is created by these laws. So when we refer to the sacred text, these are the scriptures that we refer to. So in Romans 12:2, it says, "Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your" what? Mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, for those of you in our live studio audience, who is God?
God is love.
God is love. Everyone, who is God?
God
is love. Never forget that, because God has been called many different names: provider, healer, but the name that he calls himself is love. Which means it's love that heals you, it's love that provides for you, it's love that accelerates you, it's love that ascends you. All these things are done in love. So Romans 12:2 again, "Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God." This scripture reveals to us that we must first and foremost not conform to this world. When this scripture was written, to not conform to this world simply means do not conform to what someone tells you. It is up to you to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, some of you may be asking, well, how do I get transformed by the renewing of my mind? Well, in order to be able to transform your mind, you must exercise your faith. And in our previous guest speaker with Kahuku'ule, she spoke about faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. So your hope allows you to transform your mind. But if your mind is rooted in what someone else taught you and is rooted in what was of the past, what happens is you now fail to be transformed. Meaning, every situation is unique. So if you judge a situation based on what happened to you in time past, now what happens is you're no longer transformed, but you are now stuck, repeating the same patterns of the past. But when you tell yourself that, wait a minute, time is a series of divinely created moments, and that time past was that created moment, therefore I learned this thing from that past, I understand this thing from that past, but here's another situation. I'm not going to judge it based on the past, I'm going to judge it based on the present. Now, all of a sudden, you're renewing your mind. Why? Because every situation is different. But if you think and you judge every situation as the same, then you yourself fail to move forward in life and repeat. You become a repetitive cycle. That's what they call it, I guess, in some terminology, the karmic cycle, or people who do things over and over and over and wonder why they never change, or the situations around them never change. So in Romans 12:2, of course, the renewing of your mind. But also, I want to share something here, that in Hebrews 10:36. In fact, let's turn there. Hebrews 10:36, and I'll let one of our live studio audience read that. Hebrews 10:36. Teja, can you please read that? Hebrews 10:36.
For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised.
Okay, so we are in need of endurance. Now, we learned in our previous episodes that the trying of your faith, the testing, when we get tested, and mind you, everything in life is just a test. When you get tested, it's to build up your endurance. Why do we need to build up our endurance? According to the sacred text, we need to build up our endurance for one purpose, so that we know what the will of God is. That is the reason why we need to build up our endurance. And with this, I want to share with you, there's a bunch of scriptures, but I'm actually more guided to share with you a testimony. So I was watching an episode, a special about the Christianity in the islands here in Hawaii. And when I watched that episode, I was quite educated, because I was taught from time past that the missionaries came here to the islands and shared the gospel. But in fact, what I discovered through this documentary, and historians and documented literature, it proved that it was the native Hawaiians, who went abroad. They received the gospel. They were so inspired, and they were so enlightened and fired up when they received the gospel, that they came back to the islands, and they led a group of individuals, Hawaiian missionaries, to go to each island to share the gospel. Now, the reason why the Western missionaries came is because they heard of all the good things that were happening here in the islands. That's the reason why they were so fired up that they came. They were like, wow, there's a lot of things happening there in Hawaii, in the islands. We want to go and help out the cause. That's why they came. But the initial purveyors of the gospel were the Hawaiian missionaries, who learned about the gospel and they came back. But today, out of all the scriptures that I have here that I was going to share, I'm more focused on this, but the one that's I'm more guided to focus on is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And with this, I'm going to share a testimony, or not a testimony, but more of a story that I learned watching this documentary about Kapiolani. And she was part of the royal monarchy, but she herself, she heard the gospel. And at that time in Hawaii, there was something called the kapu system. The kapu system meant there were these strict rules and regulations that could not be broken. And if they were broken, the result was death. So that was the kapu system. So she knew that the kapu system kept so many people in bondage. And the kapu system was being already broken down throughout the islands, but on the island of Hawaii, the Hawaii island, that particular island, the kapu system was still very strong over the people. So what Kapiolani did is she received the gospel and she wanted to first break the kapu system officially over the people of that island, but she also wanted to show the people that this God is God. So what she did is her and 100 of her followers walked all the way up to, I believe it was the volcanic crater at that time. I'm not sure exactly which one it was, but she walked up to the volcanic crater and she publicly announced or declared that if Pele is a god, consume me and then you worship Pele. She was publicly declaring that. But if Pele cannot consume me, then we, declaration-wise, we will only worship the true living God. With that being said, she hiked down into the crater, and in fact, she didn't just pick the ohela berries, which are at that time considered sacred. She didn't just pick the berries, but she also picked a few lava rocks and cast it into the lava pit. Now, as we all know, or some of you who are here, who are familiar with this story, she was not consumed. She was not consumed. So she walked out of that crater. When she came out of that crater, guess who publicly declared that God is the living God? Her and all her followers, and it resonated through all the islands, which means that was the official breaking of the kapu system, because they came to the understanding that the living God is the only God that is over all these islands. The reason why I say that or share that historical find is because at that time it was not even written in the sacred text or anything to challenge a goddess or a believed goddess like Pele. So what is that saying? What Queen Kapiolani did is she did not conform to the world, but she transformed her mind, which she said, I'm going to do something new. I'm going to try something new. And what does the scripture say? That trying of your faith produces patience, endurance. So she took that initiative and she created something new. Now, what exactly did she create? She created now a belief. She didn't create a belief system, but she allowed the belief system of God being the living God to resonate through all the islands because of the act that she did. So what is this telling all of us? This is telling all of us, do not be stuck. Do not conform to the religious mindsets that hold you in bondage. Do not conform to what someone said here or someone said there. Open your mind. Allow the Spirit to move you. So when the Spirit moves you, you move according and you start to do things that you are guided to do. And when you are doing things that you are guided to do, what happens is now you begin to ascend and transcend. And nothing can hold you back. No one or no thing can hold you back when you ascend as well as transcend. So with that, again, Romans 12:2, do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And that is the meaning of time. That there, ladies and gentlemen, is your oracle message of the day. Thank you very much. And until next time, mahalo.